Hi, internet friends. So, I have been procrastinating like crazy this week, but it's been the productive kind of procrastinating. I've built a couple of websites with Canva so that I can publish Impulse Buy to the Google Play App Store. You don't need to have a dev site, but I wanted to make one showcasing the apps that I was working on. But you do need to have a link to your privacy policy for your app, and I wanted to just make something super simple for it anyways. So I've made a couple websites. I made an Airtable for capturing feedback and support requests. And the most exciting productive procrastination I've done has been getting an internal release of Impulse Buy onto my phone. And that's what this is. So you can't really tell that it's my phone, but I have a Samsung phone that lets you open apps on your phone on your computer. And so this is Impulse Buy running on my phone, being screen shared to my computer. And it's really exciting, and I'm really excited, and it's getting so close to being ready for closed testing. There are 2 tasks left that I think I need to do before I can really submit it for that. And they're the 2 that I'm procrastinating by doing all the other work. That needs to get done anyways, but it still feels like procrastinating. And the last 2 tasks are setting up RevenueCat, so setting up subscriptions and the ability to upgrade. And then the other one is the one that I've tried working on a couple of times this week and last week, and I just keep running into problems. And that is setting up this little info bar right here on the search page where it shows the total number of items returned from a search request, as well as the total cost of those items. And I thought it would be relatively straightforward, and I feel like the steps themselves are pretty straightforward, but it's just implementing them. I keep running into issues. So, as one last act of procrastination, I'm recording this video, and my thought is to use y'all as a rubber duck. And if you're not familiar with this concept in programming, when you rubber duck with someone, you essentially describe the problem that you're trying to solve verbally to someone else or something else, like a rubber duck. And the idea is that through explaining it out loud and walking through it, you'll come to realize whatever it is you needed to actually figure the thing out. So that's what I'm going to do in this video, is I'm going to walk through my planning / debugging-ish process of setting up this bar of showing the total items returned from an API call and the total cost returned from the API call. And to help me with doing that, I actually made a Notion template to help me keep track of as I work. Like I said, I've worked on this a couple of times before, and I was trying so many different things and trying to iterate and change things so quickly that it was making my head spin, and I was forgetting what I'd already tried and what was the result of all those different things that I've already tried. So I was like, okay, I need somewhere where I can log and write down the different things that I've tried so I know and remember. So I made this little template that just has this little space to write out what the ultimate goal is, what the expected behavior is. And then I created this little table that is essentially a work log where I'm going to write down what I've tried and the results of what I've tried so that I can remember. And I'm going to share this on my Buy Me a Coffee page. It'll be totally free. It's just something I want to share in case it's useful for somebody else. So, let's get into it. Okay, so like I said, the goal is to update this total items count and total saved count every time we make a search. You can see that I do have this total items count right now, but I'm not really a big fan of how that's implemented. But it's not very efficient, or it's not really working quite as well as I'd like. So I think what I want to do is make 2 separate API calls for every search. One of them is going to be to get the total items and the total saved. And then the second one is going to be to get the results. So I have this main items list API call that is taking into account all of those filters, and then on search it refreshes this API call to get the results. So this part is good, and I'll just make a note. Backend uses FlutterFlow's backend query on list view. And for this one, I think the ideal way is to use a custom action, because that way I can use Supabase's RPC function, I think, and it calls a Postgres function in Supabase. And I think that's the best way to go about it. And that is the route that I started on earlier this week, and the issue I was hitting was that I couldn't figure out how to send the filters from the app to Supabase in a way that Supabase liked. Let's go look at the custom action that I had set up. I've got search results cost. Here in FlutterFlow, we have this custom action that's getting called when someone hits the search button. And it's taking all the parameters of the filters and the search text for the title. And here's Supabase calling RPC. This is the name of the Postgres function that I wrote. And then here are the parameters that I was attempting to send. The issue that I kept running into with this flow was trying to send an array of data. You know what? I kind of want to go look at this library and see if there is something that returns like a sum or a total count. Yeah, let's see. Fetch data. So select query reference tables. Querying with count option. That's exactly what I want. Okay. See, I had this other thought too, that what if I just use the custom actions and I don't even use the backend query that FlutterFlow, that the way that my list view is set up right now, because this seems like it would return, yeah, that's what I want, plus another property of like total cost. But I don't want to have to figure out on my own how to set up infinite scrolling. And FlutterFlow's backend query like already takes care of that. It's just a little toggle and it works. And I don't want to have to think about handling that manually. Okay, and is there a way to, what was the other thing I needed to do is sum. I need to get a sum. I don't see one. Maybe search for sum or aggregate. No. All right, I'm going to Google search. Okay, so this looks like an example, kind of what I want to do, but yeah, so this is kind of the route that I took of like calling the RPC function, passing params, and then I had a Postgres method like this. But right, the issue was that I was trying to pass arrays of content of data, not just strings. That is why I am looking for something else. All right, so I found this Supabase blog post about aggregate functions, which is what sum is. And so it's saying that I can just pass it into the select parameter. So theoretically, we could do something with this code that looks like select cost.sum, like that. Okay, I'm down to try that. Yeah, this kind of turned from like a rubber duck session into just reading documentation. So let this be a PSA. Read the documentation, read blog posts. Yeah, I'm gonna stop recording now and work for a bit. and I will be back later with an update on how this went. All right, so I'm back after a few hours, and even though I feel like I didn't do such a great job of doing the whole rubber duck talking through things, just diving into that documentation really helped because I got it working. So here it is in the test version. We can filter by tags, and you'll see that it gets everything and it's doing all the things it needs to do. Yeah, what I ended up doing was in a custom action. It's not very pretty, but I've got these two different Supabase requests. This one for handling when there are tags selected, and this one for handling when there's not a tag, no tag selected. And the reason why I did that is because that tags column is an array of content. So unlike the status title and want level title, where I could just include all of the options to essentially filter on none of them, that doesn't work for tags, so I had to completely omit it. So I have this custom action that's making those API calls, and it returns just an array with one item of JSON with a cost. Pretty much this. It has, actually it's called sum and then count. So it's got those two properties with the data. And it was so exciting that it just worked so quickly. If we go to my search page, we can see when we use it here on this search button. So down here, it's calling this custom action and it's passing in all of the filters that have been selected. And then here we're taking the results from that action and saving it into a couple of page state variables. And then I'm passing those page state variables into this UI here. And yeah, I used this pretty much the whole time I was working, and it was surprisingly helpful. I've never actually done this before, but like I said, after last time, I was just so discombobulated from working on it and trying to debug it. So listing out exactly what I was like trying to do and the result of it was super helpful. Like you can see, I started with that method that I found of .count, but then I got an error. So I moved on to another example of syntax that I found of that, and then I got this other error. And so I tried another one, and this is the one that ended up working, but then I got a different error of aggregate functions are not allowed, you have to enable them, and on and on and on. Oh, I think one other kind of interesting thing was that I ended up changing the way I was doing the tags. So before I was using contained. Do I still have the documentation open? Yeah, so before I was using contains and contained, and I was trying to get that to work, but it wasn't working how I was expecting it to. Like if you had two tags selected, it would only find the things that had both of them and not the ones that like had singular instances of just a circle, or something along those lines. And so I ended up changing it to this overlaps, and that's working exactly how I would expect it to work. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, we can look at the network response here if you're curious. This is what it looks like when it's making that API call. It's sending in the filters that have been selected, and then the response, like I said, is just an array with a sum and the count. and it works. And compared to trying to write, compared to trying to get this Supabase function to work, that was so easy. Read the documentation, friends. Read the documentation. It will help you. I think that's all that I have for this video. And I feel like this video was probably a little bit chaotic and not super useful for you, but it was incredibly useful for me to try to explain my thought process and approach to figuring this out. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.